Travel along, Catholic pilgrims, as we learn from St. Augustine, Doctor of the Church, while we read his book, Confessions. Hello, Catholic pilgrims, and welcome back. Today we are going to hear more about Alypius' story. If you remember yesterday, St. Augustine was telling us about how Alypius, his friend, went to Rome before Augustine, and he got caught up in the bloody arena spectacles. Today we will go back in time even a little further to when Alypius was still in Carthage. He gets accused of a crime, and St. Augustine tells us the story. We are reading from Book 6, Chapter 9, on page 123. Nevertheless, all this was stored away in his memory so that later on he might turn the lesson to good account. And there was another event in his life too, which you, my God, must surely have allowed to happen only because you knew that he was to be a great man in later life, and you wanted him to start in good time to learn that, in judging cases, one man must not too easily condemn another through being over-credulous. While he was still studying under me at Carthage, you allowed him to be arrested as a thief by the market officers. He was in the market in the middle of the day thinking over an exercise of the sort which is regularly given to students, a set piece which he had to recite. He was strolling alone in front of the law courts, carrying his pen and his writing tablets, when the real thief, a young student like himself, made his way without attracting the notice of Alypius towards the leaden gratings which project over the moneylenders' shops. He carried a hatchet, which he kept out of sight, and with this he began to hack away the lead. But the moneylenders in their shops below heard the noise. Quietly they discussed what to do and sent some men to arrest anyone they might find. At the sound of their voices, the thief dropped his hatchet and ran off, frightened that he might be caught with it in his possession. Alypius had not seen the thief arrive, but he saw him leave. He noticed that he was in a hurry to get away, and went into the building to discover the reason for his haste. He found the hatchet, and while he stood wondering how it came to be there, the men who had been sent to find the intruder arrived to find Alypius alone, and in his hand the tool which had caused the noise that had alarmed them and brought them to the spot. They seized him and dragged him away, proudly telling the crowd of shopkeepers, who had by now assembled, that they had caught him in the act. Then they took him off to hand him over to the magistrates. But this was the end of his lesson. You, O Lord, were the only witness of his innocence, and at once you stood by his side to defend him. For as they were leading him away to be tortured or imprisoned, they met the architect in charge of public buildings. Alypius's captors were particularly glad to meet this official because he had often suspected them of stealing goods missing from the market, and now, at last, he would realize who was guilty of these crimes. But the architect had often seen Alypius at the house of one of the senators, whom he frequently visited. He recognized him at once, and taking him by the arm, led him aside to ask how he came to be in such trouble. When he heard what had happened, he turned to the excited onlookers who were noisily threatening Alypius, and told them all to follow him. They passed by the house of the youth who had committed the crime. At the door they found a slave boy, quite able to tell all he knew, but too young to fear any consequences for his master. He had, in fact, been with his master in the market. Alypius remembered him and told the architect, who showed the hatchet to the boy and asked him whose it was. Without hesitation the boy answered, "Ours," and went on to tell the whole story in answer to the architect's questions. By this means the guilt was laid where it belonged, much to the confusion of the crowd, which had begun too soon to be jubilant over the arrest of Alypius. And Alypius, who was destined later to preach your word and judge many cases in your church, went home all the wiser for this experience. Have you ever been accused of something that you didn't do? You just happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time, or People just passed rash judgment because that's what people love to do on the internet or even out in the world. My junior year of high school, while in band class, I got called down to the front office one day. Now, I had no clue why I was being called down there, but when I got there, a police officer was there saying that he wanted to talk to me. And I could not imagine what the heck he needed to talk to me for. And I don't remember exactly how it happened, but I either drove down to the police station after school or they asked me right then to follow them down to the police station. Either way, I ended up at the police station. And what's weird is that my mom worked in the same building. She worked for the city, and she had no idea that I was in the back of the building being questioned. Her office was up at the very front, and I don't even know why I didn't go get her or stop in her office before I went to the back. Like, I have no idea why I didn't. But I didn't. She had no idea. Anyway, the reason that I was there is that my ex-boyfriend's silver trumpet had been stolen, and he was accusing me of stealing it. Now, my ex was an absolute jerk, abusive, conniving, but funny and charming, and so people really liked him, and he could be very believable. Now, I had no clue about his trumpet, and I said as much. I was so angry with my ex for lying to cover himself because I knew he had something to do with it. I knew that he probably sold it to buy parts for his stupid car or cigarettes or whatever. Come to find out, the police located the trumpet in a pawn shop in downtown Kansas City, Kansas, and the worker there identified my ex as the one who had come in to sell the trumpet. Because, of course, it was him. So thankfully, I wasn't in trouble anymore. But it was awful to be viewed that way as some kind of a criminal. And I was nervous, not because I did anything wrong, but because I was worried that somehow they would find a way to pin the crime on me. Rash judgment is a sin. The Catechism tells us that rash judgment is assuming, without sufficient foundation, the moral fault of a neighbor. And we see this online all the time. Not necessarily accusing people of committing crimes, but making moral judgments about people that we don't even know. Rash judgment is a sin against truth and charity, and it can ruin people's reputation. I know that it's hard not to commit this sin. I do it all the time, and most of the time I don't even recognize that I'm doing it. It's just that easy to commit. So one thing to remember is to make sure that you're gathering a lot of information, pause before forming an opinion, and stand up for those that you see who are being judged rashly. Poor Alypius, I'm glad he had someone there to stand up for him, the building architect, and I'm also glad that the slave boy told the truth of the matter. Thankfully, both of those people did the right thing. But that is all for today. We will hear more about Alypius tomorrow, but until then, live the faith boldly and travel well.